Hi, it's Lori from Coast to Coast Craft Girls coming to you from the West Coast. Today I want to share some cards that I made using scraps, actually. It's just kind of the offcuts after I made other cards. And I have a few to show you, and then I'm going to show you how I made them. So very simple to make, super fast, and they look great. So there's the first. Here's a second one where I had a couple of scraps left over and just used some stamps. And then this one I had two panels left over from another card and put them together in nice sentiment. And that's it. So very simple to make. Let me show you how to do it. Let's get started. So we're going to start. I've got a couple of pieces of paper from the Crafter's Companion Frosty and Bright collection. And you can see these were from another card that I made. And I just cut some mats and layers to fit them. So we're just going to mat and layer that paper on there. And since it's glitter card, I'm going to use tacky glue because the tape pen or other things don't work. So actually, before I go on, so this was all one sheet of paper, and I don't think it went together that way, but it's all one sheet of paper. And basically what I'm going to use the right side or the A side of one on one panel and the so-called B side on the other, but they're exactly the same size. So we're just going to make two contrasting panels, and in this case you know that the paper goes together because it's the same sheet of paper. It's just the back side of one versus the other. And then I used this sort of pinkish glitter card just because I liked the glitter. I had a spare piece of that too, and it kind of pulls out some of these brownie tones from the paper, so I liked that. And because these are offcuts of paper, they're just scraps, so I really didn't worry about the size that they were and what card size they were going to make or anything else. Now you can, if you want, you can cut them down to make sure that it makes a 4x6 or whatever kind of size card you want. But I was just going to put them together and see what size it came up with. So this card's going to be, I can make that into a 5 by 6 3/4 or just a little under 6 3/4. So I have a 5x7 card blank, and I'm just going to glue them on there, and then I'll trim, and then once I glue them on, I can trim the card base down to fit the paper. And that way, if they don't exactly fit, see they're not exactly the same height, doesn't matter. You just trim it down after you put the paper on. Simple, just like that. Line this up to the edge. And again, the wet glue gives you just a minute to kind of get it in the right spot. There's the first panel. This is a great way to use just scraps. You can, and it doesn't have to be, I'll show you in a second, they don't have to be the same. Like in this case, it was a one-piece, spare piece of double-sided card, so it was easy to find a match. But I'll show you a different way to do it if you don't have that situation. So there's the front of my card, and then I'm just going to trim that piece off, and all you do is line it up there and then cut it off. And so you just cut that strip off, and now no one would know that you didn't intend on making your card that size. Now all I'm going to do is add a sentiment to it, and then I might add a bow. I don't know, we'll think about it. And all I did is I stamped a sentiment with some blue ink. I'm not sure I like that blue. I might try a different color blue. I'm not sure I like that blue. Let's try something different. See, this is just kind of the way it works, though. I thought the blue would be nice, but I'm not sure. Oh, I got it upside down. But I'm not sure that I'm going to like that. Let's try something different. Let's try this rose satin. I think that might look nice. I'm not sure I can get this off. Oh, I can. Oh, that's even better. There we go. Didn't think I was going to be able to get that off. Well, since I can get that off in one piece, I think I'll just save it in case for another card. And then I'll just put this right on that same scrap of pink because that's what I got. Just like that. And then we're just going to mount that right on there. And then I think maybe I'll look for a little bow or something. I'm going to center it up in there. And I think it would benefit from a bow. Let's see if I can find a bow in the right color. I'm gonna try the pink, see what it looks like. Let's see, my bow making skills, not great, but yeah, I think we'll go with the pink. Just put that on with some 3D glue gel. Yeah, I think that adds to it. And done. Very simple. Now, that's one, as I said, I used the same, it was from the same paper pad, and I just used the right side or one side. It was a double-sided pad, so I used one side and then I flipped it over and used the opposite side, so you know that they're going to match. What happens if you have one like this, which is, I love this paper, but it doesn't match. So I had a 12-inch strip. It was a, not like that. There we go. It was a 12-inch strip because I had a 12 by 12 sheet of paper that I cut down by 2 inches. And so I had this left over. And what are you going to do with a 2-inch strip? Now, this is a single-sided piece of paper, so, and if you put them together like that, I don't really care for the look of that. So, you know, I don't think they look the greatest. So I thought, okay, well, we can mount them on red and do a panel, because I just cut it in half. So it's about 6 inches. So I cut them in like that. And then I had, these are, as you can see, they're slightly different reds. So I have to keep them separate. But so there's 2 panels in the color, but then I didn't have a printed paper that looked good with it. I could not find something. Now you can just put the one panel on there and leave it and just put a sentiment on, but I thought, I like it where you've got a little bit something more to it. So I took some white card and I cut down, and I found an embossing folder that's got, it's a Crafter's Companion Christmas embossing folder. It's got kind of a holly pattern, so it kind of goes. And I'm just going to emboss these. So we're going to make 2 cards at once. So just kind of lay those in the embossing folder. Straight in there. And I'm going to run them through my Gemini. And then when I take them out, now I have a little bit more interest in that panel. And I like that. I think that looks good. But it's white. It's very white. It's very stark. Whereas this is more of a, not really cream, but it's got a green tint to it. So I thought I got to do something with the white because it's just too stark. So got my pine tree water reactive ink. I'm just going to kind of lightly go over this, starting around the edge. And I'm just trying to take that stark whiteness away, give it some interest. And with the embossing, the other upside is that the ink will highlight that embossed area. You just kind of go over it very softly. And I don't want like a solid color. I want kind of a mottled look almost, where it's not solid green, but it's not white anymore. Just about like that. And now you can see that that paper, that one, the embossing shows a lot more, and it actually matches pretty darn well with that printed paper. So I'm going to do the same thing with the second piece. So this is an option if you want to do these panels and you have, you know, one printed paper that you like, but you don't have a print that goes with it for a second panel. Just make your own. Especially if you have an embossing folder and some white cardstock and an ink that it doesn't have to match exactly. The ink, that is, just something that kind of makes it go together. And this one did. So now, oh, let me wipe up my ink before I make a mess. So now you can see how well those panels go together, and they look great like that. It looks like they were meant to go together almost. So you just kind of I made my own coordinating cardstock. And in this case, because there's no glitter card, I'm using a Kalal all-purpose glue. I like it a lot because it gives me lots of wiggle time to really slide those panels into place, get them exactly where I want. And again, these reds are different reds, so you want to make sure that if you have different reds, you can see that the color's not the same, so I got to keep them separate, or keep the 2 colors together. Let me do the other one. So you can see how fast a card like this comes together. If you had scraps, or if you wanted to do this even out of a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, just cut it into strips. Very simple. If you had 2 pieces of 12 by 12 coordinating paper, these are 2-inch by 6-inch strips. You could get, well, let's see, you get 12, basically 12 panels out of each card, or out of each sheet of 12 by 12. because you get 6 across, you know, this way and 2 this way. So you'd have 12, and out of 2 sheets of paper, you could easily have 12 cards. And then you just need the coordinating cardstock on the back. So there's those. Again, let me bring in my card bases. I've got 5x7 card bases. If you don't have card bases, you can make them, or you can make them yourself, or you can buy them. I find it's easier to just buy them. And this time I'm going to leave a little bit of white space. And again, you can see that because this was an offcut, I didn't measure it to fit a 5x7 card. So I'll just put it on there where I want it, and then I'll trim the card base to fit. Yeah, I think I'll do it like that. Okay, so there's that. Now let me trim those down. Get my trimmer back up here. And I'm going to do the same thing, except this time I'm going to leave just a little bit of that white border so that it matches. And I got to trim 2 sides because okay, so there's one. Do the other one. And there's 2. Super easy. Glue squidging out. That's the other nice thing about this all-purpose glue is if it squishes out like that, you can just rub it away. And then I stamped a sentiment. I got to make sure I get the right red on there. I think that's right. And we're just going to put or have a wonderful Christmas on there. Just like that. And I don't think I'm going to put a bow on it this time. Might put some red jewels. Yeah, I think I'll put some red jewels. And whenever I put little jewels, I always put them there, down there. I think I'm going to put them here. I always put a little dot of tacky glue so they stay in the same place, and then odd numbers, and try to get. I personally like symmetry where I put them in the same kind of opposite corners or something like that. You don't have to, but I just like it that way. I was a math major, so I like the symmetry of things. Or at least that's my excuse. And again, you could put a bow on it if you like bows instead. But yeah, I kind of like the jewels. This one I might try them in the corner here and just see if I like that any better. Oh. So you see different ways of doing it. I might use one big one. Corners. Yeah. Okay, so there we go. A way to make your own coordinating cardstock if you don't have something that you think goes. Super easy to do. And I'm not sure. I think I like the jewels better here, but I like them both. All right. Next, let me show you. So that was sort of something like this. Now, see, you can see with this one, I tried a bow and I didn't like it. And instead of putting jewels on it, I had these already made up and they were just sitting on my desk. So I thought, I'll use that. Again, it's trying to use things that I had already done. So now let me show you this one. So I had these squares. So you can see it's that same cardstock. And these were the inside. I had cut like pieces, and then I had gutted the inside of the pieces that I used because I really like that cardstock, and so I didn't want to waste it. And so this was the inside of what I had used the big 12 by 12 sheet for. And as you can see, these are the 2-inch strip that I had, that same cardstock. But I really like that cardstock. So, but I didn't have any more of that. So I did have this. And this is actually from the Sarah Signature, Crafter's Companion Sarah Signature Reindeer collection. And that's all I had. I have this little bit left. And again, I had some glitter cards, so I'm going to put that on there. And again, because it's glitter card, I'm going to use tacky glue. And if you're wondering, this is the same tacky glue as the other one. It's just got a fine tip applicator. And there's not really any. Sometimes I grab one, sometimes I grab the other. It's the same stuff. It's all Kalal tacky glue, so it doesn't matter. But I find I have a little more control with that one. With this one, as you can see, it's just a bigger nozzle. So like when I squeeze it out, I kind of have to almost rub it around because it gets too much. But just the nice thing about using a little bit more is it gives you a little more wiggle time. But it also, if you get too much on there, it can warp your card because it is a water-based glue. So tacky glue, less is more. So you don't want to use too much. Now that other one, I had bigger squares. So I actually, I'll show you in a second. Let me get this on there. So this one, oops, with this card, this is a big card. It's 8 1/4 by 5, because this square was a lot bigger. Actually, I take it back. It's the same size. I thought it was bigger. Oh, these are smaller. Okay. So I'm going to have to make my own card base on this one, probably. So the way that I figured it out is like this. Let me see if I put this down here. So I kind of put these onto a line, say onto a 2-inch line on my glass mat. Oh, I do it over here. Can you see? move my camera a little bit. There we go. Okay, so if I put that on the 2-inch line, kind of where, and then I laid this on top about where I thought I would want it. It's like, okay, it's got to come up maybe to the 2.5-inch line. So that means it's got to be probably at least a 5 inches high. And then kind of lay this out kind of about where you think it looks nice. About like that. So I think I could probably do 7.5. I get down to 7 because I have a 5x7 card base. Yeah, I could make that work. It's going to look different, but that's okay. And you can make your own card base if you want, but I have these, so I thought, I'm going to try this. So now what I did is I took my ruler. So this is 5 inches. So I put on my glass mat and I went at 2.5. I took my ruler and a pencil and I just drew a very faint line all the way across. And you're going to cover it up with the pieces of paper anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I just drew it faint because I didn't want it to show. And I didn't want to have to erase it, and I didn't want it to show. So now we're going to glue the smaller pieces flat. Now this, I guess I should tell you, this square, the inside was 3 by 3, and these are 2 by 2. On this one, 3 by 3 and 2.5 by 2.5. That's what I had. On the red plaid, I didn't have enough to do 2.5, so I had to do 2. So it'll look different, but you'll be able to see, kind of compare and contrast. But again, the whole idea behind these cards is to use what you have to make it work with whatever you have. So I'll put that one on, and I'm just lining up the points on that line at one edge, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. We'll line it up on the line. So both points are on that line, and this point's right on the edge. Okay, and then we're going to take this one, and we're going to raise it up on foam pads. And you want to put enough foam pads on that it doesn't sag. So I know it feels like you're wasting them by putting that many on. It feels like you could just put one on each corner and it would be enough. But if you don't put enough on, it sags, and I don't like that. So if you had a foam sheet or bigger foam pads, you could use fewer. And then you put tacky glue or whatever glue you got handy. I always just dab just a bit of glue on each foam pad, so that the foam pads, if they do dry up or anything, this piece of card is not going to fall off. Now this one's a little bit harder because you want to get it kind of right in the middle. So again, if you line it up 5 to 12, so halfway is 8.5. So you want to put that on the 8.5 and on the 8.5 and try to get it centered that way. And that looks, and that's the other reason for the glue on the foam pads, because it gives you a chance to move it around and get it in the right spot. Now you can compare those. Let me move that camera back a little bit. You can compare those and you can see that they actually do look quite different. Now on this one, I had cut this for something else, It's from the reindeer collection, and I thought, oh, it's actually in that same glitter card, so that's what I'm going to use. And I'm just going to put some tacky glue on the back of that. Okay, so let's get our reindeer on there. We're just going to put it right in the middle there. Press him down. Yeah, I probably should have slid it that way. That's okay. And then we're going to find a sentiment for that. Let's see. So I like this kind of look, so maybe I'll get that one. Let me find that one. Okay, so I have this stamp that says warm wishes to you. And we're going to put the warm up there. And then we're going to put wishes down here. I'm not going to use the to you. So this is one stamp. Now I could just, actually I think I will. I'm just going to cut it apart. So don't be afraid to do that, to split it. Now you could mask over it and do it, but in this case, this is just as easy. So get my stamping platform out here again. I need to put that one away. And in this case, get that where I want it. Warm wishes. And as you can see, it would have been a lot easier to stamp without that there, but it is what it is. So what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to stamp with my quick dry Bordeaux because that's a nice red, which will match that. So I think the black will be too stark. So we're going to go like this. Now, this is a challenge because you got to get it to stamp even though that's on foam pads. Well, it wasn't too bad. I'm going to give it one more coat of ink. Now you can see why it would have been easier to stamp before I put that piece on. Oh, I got ink and I don't want to get it on anything. Would have been a lot easier to do this before I put that front on, but that works. Okay. Now you can see on this one, I used some gems. Oh, let me put my stamps away. So that just goes to show you, don't be afraid to mix and match or trim your stamps or do whatever you need to do with them. And I put some gems on there just because I felt like there was a lot of white space there that was missing. And I think I might do the same with the red here. Yep, I am. So, but I'm going to use, I'm trying to decide which, if I'm going to use smaller ones. I think I'm going to use smaller gems. I think I'm going to use two different sizes. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. As you can see, again, I like symmetry. And we're going to start with sort of a second to these. There's 4 different sizes on this sheet. I'm going to use the second to smallest first in the corners. And then I'm going to use the little ones after that, because there's just not as much white space on this card as there was on the other, because I kind of squeezed it into that 5x7 card. Instead of an 8 by 8.25 by 5. So I have a lot less white space. So I'm just going to use smaller gems. Now the nice thing about putting the tacky glue dot, the dotted tacky glue down, is not only does it help hold those on better, because sometimes the little self-adhesive gems just don't stay on very well, but the other thing is it gives you a little bit of time to maneuver them into the right place too. And there we go. It's a little bit different, but same idea. Again, just using squares that I already had cut left over. And then I had actually cut and even had this deer cut out because I had it for something else that I cut it for and didn't use it. So there's that one. And then the last one that I showed you was this one. And I didn't have any more of that blue, but what I did have is pink. So I decided to use pink. And these were squares. I didn't have squares. I have little rectangles. I'm going to show you how to get the most out of this. And I don't have enough to mat these, but it doesn't matter because I only need the mats on the 2 sides really, and a little bit. So I'm going to kind of cut it down here and make it work. So we're going to glue one on partially, and again, this is from that Frosty and Bright paper pad, but it's just the pink tones. And I'm going to glue, I'm not going to glue all the way to the bottom because I need to trim underneath it. So we're going to get a little bit of that glitter cardstock showing. Then we're going to then I need to put this one on there. So I need to figure out how much. So this piece I need to cut down because this is going to show, and about that much is going to show coming in. So I need to trim this kind of about there. And then, let's see, this is going to go on there, but I need that to show up to there. So I got to trim, but this part's not going to show on this side. So I got to trim that side there and kind of go underneath and join up those two. And then the fact that this is cut out, I don't care because it's not going to show anyway. So let me trim that one down. So there's one piece I can use. And then this one's going to go on here. And I will have enough there, and this side. And then I'll trim down that side. And the fact that that doesn't show, it doesn't matter because it's going to be underneath. So again, make use of what you have. I don't want to cut a whole nother piece of glitter card to make this work. I just want to use the scraps of what I have. So get that on there. And I gotta cut this. So there's my two pieces. And then this is going to be my background white piece. Now what I did to make the inside is I just used my nesting die to cut an oval. And then we're going to kind of center it up on there. And you can just kind of feel where it is to try and get it in the middle. That looks pretty good. And this time, because I had a pinkish lavender cardstock, I'm going to use my Frosty and Bright Lavender Ice water reactive ink instead of blue, because it should match the paper exactly. And I'm just going to try and put some color on it. Now you can tape the oval down if you want, or use repositionable adhesive, but I just hold on to it. And again, doesn't have to be perfect. You're just going to try it. You just want to get some color in there so that to give you a little bit of a background so that it looks different from the white. You just want to kind of almost create a frame that you're going to put your snowflakes in. And that looks pretty good. I like that. So set that to one side. Now to put my snowflakes, I did this with a stamp, but I saw this stencil in my stuff and I thought, oh, well, that works. I'll just use a stencil. So I've got a stencil and I'm going to mask off some of these things with some low-tack tape because I don't want those dots there. And I don't want, actually I'm good with that snowflake, but I don't want these things there or that snowflake. And then I decided to use my gray silver metallic for the snowflakes because I had this grayish kind of background paper. So, and hopefully it'll look good. If it doesn't, well, it's just a bit of card. I can throw it away and get a new one. And I'm just using my little finger dauber to push through the stencil. And I'm going to put two on here. Okay, that looks good. And then we're going to do another big one, kind of down here towards the bottom. And this time I want to be careful not to get that one. So I'm going to take another piece of tape and kind of mask that off. And I like it where they kind of come out of the little inked frame. I think it looks better than if they're all within. But you can, you can do it however you want to do it. And that looks pretty good. But I think I'm going to add just a couple of little, maybe some of these little, see these little snowflakes on the side? Like that one. And add that one. Maybe one up here. maybe this one there. Just to give it a little bit more. Now, you can see I didn't get that very straight, did I? But I'll show you how to fix it. It's easy to fix. Because I meant to get that in the center, and I did not. And that was that Sarah Signature Glittering Snowflakes stencil. So you can see that, again, it's off to that side, right? So if you don't like that, because it's not even, and top to bottom, not great. It's not too bad, but a little bit skewed. That's not too bad, but I do feel like I need to trim that side off a little bit. So just take a little bit off. There. Now it's perfectly in the center, just the way I planned it. Now, to mount the, or to mat this, I didn't have a piece left over that was big enough, but I did have two pieces. So I'm just going to put them together and no one will ever know. Just put them like that. You'll never be able to tell that it's two pieces. So we're going to glue that on there, and then I'll trim that down after I glue it on. So let me tacky glue. Again, I could have gone back in and found a new piece of glitter card to try and cut a matte layer that fits. I didn't want to do that. This is what I had, so I'm going to make it work. So we'll start with this one, the big one, and we'll get our matte layer on there with our border just the way we want it. Okay, and then we're just going to slide that one right up against it like that, push down. And this works especially well with glitter card because it's already got kind of a bit of a texture to it. And so you really, I would bet nobody would be able to tell that that's two different pieces of card. And then we're just going to trim that up. And trim the bottom. And now you can't tell. I mean, unless you flip it over, you cannot tell that that's two pieces of card. So again, let's see. What size card base? I think I'm going to start with a 5x7 again. I was thinking it might fit on a 4x6, but I don't think so. So I got my 5x7 card base. I'll put this in there. And then again, remember, you can trim your card base afterwards. So we're going to, so this piece, I want these corners to show. And I actually did it a little bit backwards, so we're going to have to do it that way. Hopefully I did, yeah, like that. Instead of these corners, we're going to be those corners. Now, to me, I don't like that on a 5x7. I feel like it needs to come down a little bit because it feels like there's just way too much white space. So we're going to go like that. And maybe there. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So let me, and this time I'm going to use my Collage glue just because it gives me a chance to kind of wiggle it in and make sure it's in the right spot. because I can't remember exactly where I had it. But I can put it down and then move it around. Now you can mark it if you want, but I'm just going to put it there and then set this on top so I can wiggle it, these around. Go that way. This has got to go up a little bit. And see where I trimmed out the matte layers on the bottom pieces? You can't even tell that, you can't tell that that's silver glitter doesn't go all the way around that card. Doesn't matter. We're going to go just a little bit higher. See, because those corners are hidden, so. Yep, great, I like that. We'll leave that, and then we'll put this on there. Just like that. And then I did oh, let me trim this card down. I want to leave just a little bit of a white border. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And maybe about there. Yeah, that looks good. And then because I started with a 5x7 card base, this will fit in a 5x7 envelope. It won't be exactly perfect in a 5x7 envelope, but it will go in a 5x7 envelope. You can also make your own envelopes for the size that you made your cards if you want. Honestly, I will probably just put it in a 5x7 envelope just the way that it is, because I think it's fine. There. Now I've got this sentiment, and I'm going to put that across, and I want it to go just across this part. So it needs to be trimmed down. So if it's in the middle there, it needs to be there. And I should probably use my pencil. There and there. Now you could obviously measure that with a ruler and then cut it appropriately, but I find this is just as easy. I want a little bit thinner. Okay. And then I'm going to put this on my glitter card. And then I'll trim the glitter card down. Now, if I have measured properly, I should be able to just trim that to a nice matte layer, matte width, and it should be perfect. Oh, it's pretty close. That's almost perfect. So we're going to glue that on, and I'm going to put it just kind of right about there. And again, you could put this up on foam pads, but I'm just going to glue it flat. Just like that. And you can see that it's the same idea, but it looks completely different. Now, the other thing that I've got sitting here on my desk is these snowflakes. And I think I might add some of these on here. Let's see, what do I have? I have one in glitter card, or I have two in mirror card. That's a blue mirror, that's not silver mirror. But does that look better? No. I'll do the glitter card there. Maybe these like that. Yeah, I like that. So again, just using stuff that I already had sitting around on my desk from other projects. Perfect. I like that. It adds a little bit more since the colors are a little more muted than the blues. With the silver ink, it doesn't stand out quite as much. So, and there you go. Some very simple cards using just whatever you got laying around, just extra scraps of paper or you know, these die cuts that I had sitting around. Hope you enjoyed that, and that you use up your own scraps making some nice Christmas cards or birthday cards. You can do the same kind of thing with any occasion, really. So, all right, have a good night. Bye.